What's good? What's good? Welcome back to the Bamboo Ceiling Podcast. So this is another episode. Today we got something good for you guys. So what's going on today is we are talking about, are you too sensitive? We live in a, hypersensitive, emotionally charged social media world where everything is exposed. Even your mom and your grandma is exposed in this world. And so we want to talk about, just scenarios. As Asians, we are more naturally passive, right? And are there things that, we are just too sensitive about and we need to let go? Or are there things that, we need to shine the light on more? As everything, you cannot say anything or you will definitely be thrown to the wolves and everybody's canceled. Everybody's going to come after you with pitchforks. And so today we want to talk about some scenarios of, are we too sensitive? Has the pendulum swung that way where, we are just too sensitive in this day and age? So I want to get us started with a scenario. And let's just have a conversation around it. So first scenario is, are we too sensitive in this, especially in this COVID time, right? Where, you go to Target and a white person, right, comes in the aisle, sees you as an Asian person, and then they avoid you and go back out of the aisle and just avoid you and not be around you. Are you too sensitive, and do you think that's racial discrimination?
No, for me, after COVID hit, you start noticing certain things, but I think the media has a lot to do with that. And just because all you're seeing is, hey, they're afraid of Asians, they're afraid of this. You hear all these stories, and then you start playing those in your head. And then when you go to Target or wherever it is, and someone, like you said, comes into the aisle, sees you, and goes the other way, like, you could either go, hey, what the F, like, that's kind of racist, or you can go the route of more space for me, Like, to me, that's how I am. I'm not very sensitive when it comes to stuff like that. If they walk the other way, good for me.
Yeah. I think in the beginning, when COVID first was introduced, I can see why people would be offended, because there's maybe two people that had or at least two reported cases in America, right? And if white people are stepping aside, looking at you weird because you're Asian, thinking that you got COVID because it started from China, I can see why you're offended. But in this time of day right now, where America has 4 million cases. Is that the number?
I don't know. It's quite, it's up there.
4 million cases. Okay, you're overly sensitive. If they're stepping aside right now, in this time of age, 4 million cases, and you're thinking it's because you're Asian, I think you're being a little oversensitive.
Yeah.
Do you think it's funny how we automatically default to white people avoiding and not Mexicans or Latinos or black people, because we kind of side or gear towards the minority? So it's with the others versus white. Not saying
we're showing our biases.
But then again, I keep saying, the media only portrayed the white Karens,
and the others.
Yes,
the others is everybody else that is not
right.
So in the beginning, if a minority were a Latino or a black person would step to the side, would you have been offended at all?
Not much, because I feel like we already relate on a lot of things in life, because we have been canceled in our whole lives, right? So there isn't much, because I think it's the media bias that goes back to what Duck is saying. So I do think that plays a huge part in how people feel about people nowadays. And so I think it's always the white versus the others in this case, even though there are a lot of issues with black, brown, yellow,
amongst each other.
I think the main issue is more white versus the others, more white versus black, but
that's a nice take, Apple, because I didn't even think about it like that, right? Sensitivity on both ends, right? because we're already August, so we're about what like 5 good months into COVID since the breakout.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely, dude. If you're a person of like the majority and you're still moving away from Asians when you see them, and you're freaking too sensitive. Okay, we're 5 months into the freaking pandemic already. Everyone's got it now. Like there's even your dog can get it now, you know. So then there's really no need to be going in and out of an aisle because because an Asian person is there. And then on the flip side, if you're Asian too and you're still bothered by this, dude, like grow some skin, you know, because we're 5 months into the pandemic already, and if you haven't figured out that you shouldn't let these kind of things bother you, then you know life is gonna be challenging.
Okay, let's get it juicier. Are you too sensitive if they call you a gook or a chink?
Okay, chink. To be honest, I've never gotten called a gook or a chink. So then I don't know how I would react.
Because you grew up in a small town, man.
Yeah, but you would think that's worse, right?
Yeah.
Because you've been to the small towns. You know how scary it is, you know? Like
because they only did it behind your back because they knew they would see you eventually again.
Right. But have you guys been called a gook or a chink?
I have.
Where?
Down in Colorado, high school.
Yeah.
Growing up, it was a huge Hispanic population. But I think we're in the wrong too, because I think this is for a whole nother topic. I've said racist stuff, you know, and I think when I was called gook and a chink, I threw back beaners. You know what I mean?
So it was actually.
So it was like a race war, like a derogatory. It
was a war of words at the time. Huh? Mm-hmm.
And even white folks, you know, and so I think it stung, but I couldn't fully grasp the sting if you understand that. And so I think you just kind of knew that there was a race tension there, but I just didn't fully understand how if it did impact me and how much it impacted me. But.
I mean, I grew up in St. Paul, so it happened all the time. Like,
who were the majority of the time? Who were the people calling you?
Yeah, I think it happened from childhood to about high school, right? Not so much high school, but childhood, to high school. And I think it was just kids being mean, like because they probably got it from somewhere.
Yeah.
I don't want to assume parents, but they got it from somewhere, right? And so it would be chink, gook, or ching ching chong, or they would do those things. And I was really offended then. And now that I think about it, like, because I'm not offended by it now. Because I get, it's just hurt people being stupid and being hurt, And so back then I was offended, not so much that they were calling me that, but I had the idea in my head that as Asians, we don't stick up for each other. So I had to like stick up for myself, right? Like to prove a point that no matter what, I'm gonna stick up for myself. So it wasn't so much they were calling me a chink, but I was under the impression that they're only calling me that because they know I won't say nothing back to them, right? And so then I would say something back to them, and so it took me a while to figure that out, but that's why I was mad, right? Because I thought they thought that I wouldn't say nothing back.
Yeah, like one thing I do notice that like culturally in this country, it's more of like they're a lot more keen to like insults. So like at work, right? Some of the stuff that like my coworkers would say to each other, it's like borderline offensive, but that's just the norm for them. Like every day they would do it. Like, a dude would I'll be on break. This dude would be leaving because he started early. He'll be leaving, and every day they gotta insult each other. And
jokingly, or
it's more like a
sarcasm?
Understanding like that American culture
is like so like if somebody called you a gook or a chink, like you could literally just flip it and said, hey, at least I don't know, like what's appropriate like to say it to another race of
a white person.
Yeah, if it was a white person that said it to you, just think of a comeback. It's like an insulting culture. Like it's normal to them, whereas like for Asians, you don't really insult each other, I can't talk about sleeping with your wife or how sexy your mom looks, whereas like for them for their culture, they can literally talk about.
It's almost that locker room talk.
It is, but they do it like out in public and
So you wouldn't be offended because you've been exposed to like kind of that American culture. And you're starting to understand that a little bit.
Right. So then I wouldn't be offended. I would just come back with something.
Yeah, I think I wouldn't be offended now, right? But I would challenge people for sure and be like, dude, what made you say that? You know, I think there's a lot of ignorance, you know, that I would challenge nowadays. But that's me growing comfortable in my own skin. Yeah. You know, I think there's a lot of insecurity involved in that where I feel like if you didn't, you know, grow thick skin or, you know, comfortable in your own skin, there's a lot of insecurity because you will feel like a foreigner. You feel like you're outside, and that hurt that pain can turn into, you know, some aggression. And so I don't know for everybody, the majority, how that looks like, but I think that is still derogatory, right, to the community. But to some, like for me, I can challenge that and have a healthy space to conversate if they're willing to conversate. Right. You know, but if not, that's on them. That's not on me in that sense.
So yeah, I'm the same way. It doesn't offend me now, right? But the one thing that does offend me is when people tell me to go back to where I came from, though. Like,
go back to your country.
Go back to your country. Like,
why is that more offensive?
That's like because to me, right? I might not be the American flag toting American.
You're not the poster child.
Waving the American flag, but I am proud to be an American, right?
You were born here.
I was born here, right? And I see myself as American as any American, right? Even though others might not, but I see myself that way. And so when people tell me to go back to my country, I get super heated. I get super triggered, and that's when I've actually gotten into arguments with what I say white people, but it's white people, right? When they say go back to your country, those are the times where I've almost, to Duck's term, blacked out, and like just shouting match. And it's because like I am proud to be here, and it sucks to know that I have to work harder to be an American, right? To be seen as an American.
See, for me, I was born here too, so I know I am American, right? But I don't see myself as an American. But I also don't see myself having a motherland or somewhere to go back to. So more orphaned in that. So I don't feel as offended, but I just feel lost in that. Where I'm like, yeah, but I don't feel like, you know, that I am American as well, or as strongly American as I should be. You know, so I don't get too offended, but I get lost in that and be like, I don't know.
Yeah, because I think sometimes people say that the whole go back to your own country. I think sometimes they don't like come out and just blatantly say that, but they will do things to make you feel like that's kind of what they're intending to say. So like I worked with this one dude, and he didn't blatantly say, hey, go back to your own country, but he was like, yeah, if you're gonna come to this country, you know, the whole the typical argument. You're gonna come to this country, you gotta you gotta fit these criteria.
Learn English.
Yeah, this and that. So I asked him. I said, hey, so do you have any family members that serve in the military? He goes, no. Did your grandfather, great grandfather, anyone serve in the military? He goes, no. Then I go, wait. So you're telling me my grandfather fought for this country? My brother is serving right now, and my brother-in-law and sister-in-law both active like military members. You're telling me I'm actually more patriotic than you are, so you need to get the fuck out of my country, you know? Because like, just flip it on them, dude. It doesn't offend me until it kind of depends on who's saying it, right? Like if you're like a freaking trailer park trash doing nothing to contribute to society, right? And then you're telling me to go somewhere, dude. You need to
white or minority, right?
Anybody. I'm just saying, you know. But like, but
so that make it clear,
but like if you're useless, right? If you're like you know, if you're like at the bottom of the barrel, like that's what offends me. It's now people that have contributed and they do their part, and when they say it, I'm just like whatever, you know. But like I don't know if that makes any sense. But like for me, I judge them based off who they are too. Yeah. So like if you're nobody telling me to get out of this country, yeah, that offends me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, moving on from that point, you are too sensitive if, you think that, banning TikTok is a racial move or discrimination towards China or Asian folks.
Yeah, that's crazy. Like, or just to give a little background, right? Or actually, Duck, you tell the story.
My daughter.
Your daughter.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
funny.
dude, it's so funny, right? So like, my wife was telling me that, yeah, one day she came up to me, she was crying, all emotional, and then my wife thought something was wrong. She asked her, hey, what's bothering you? What's going on? She goes, they're banning TikTok. So she's I've never seen her cry like that before, because all over TikTok.
Yeah, so apparently, there's a story saying that the president is planning to ban TikTok, and so there's been some pushback saying that's kind of racist, right? And I've kind of seen blogs on the internet, but the background is, well, because you know how Facebook and Google and all the other social media platforms, they data mine us, right? So they know a lot about our data once we sign up for an account. And so TikTok does the same thing. But the difference is China owns TikTok, right? And so China is, are they still considered communist or socialist? Or
I think they're communist.
They're still considered communist, right? But it's a communist state, right? And so they can do whatever they want with that data. Well, in America, at least there's regulations. And so the president is planning, because of that, the president wants to ban TikTok. And so is that racist?
Is that racist?
Right?
I don't think so. I think for the safety of just people and privacy in general, that's a universal language, right? Some people want their privacy to an extent. I don't think it's, or racially motivated at all. And I think if we know how to separate, China from Asians, from Chinese, right? Because some Chinese are Chinese American and not even associated with China. And I think the media will kind of blur those lines, right? And use that to their advantage regardless. And for me personally, I know how to separate those lines, be like, well, I'm Asian and I'm not part of China, right?
Mm-hmm.
My ancestors might have been part of China. I'm not even Chinese, even though there's ignorance around that. And so learning how to separate that, will help kind of clear some lines to not be so overly offended in the first place, but also on just the universal language side of everybody wants their privacy. So for goodness sakes of everybody's privacy, like, I think it's a good thing,
Yeah, I don't see it as being racist or anything like that. At the end of the day, dude, it's a Chinese made app, right? Isn't it? So even as a country, they don't even allow their people to use these apps, right? And so
they have their own version,
right?
of TikTok,
So then obviously it's almost like me as a parent saying, hey, you know what, I'm totally for your kids drinking alcohol, but I won't allow my kids to drink alcohol, because if it's bad for your kids and I know it's bad for mine, why am I okay with your kids using it? So yeah, I mean, I don't want in terms of privacy, yeah, I totally agree. Let's get rid of this TikTok thing, because and all the kids are going crazy anyways,
Yeah, you're being too sensitive. I think you probably don't like the president.
Right.
That's probably number one. But you're just being you're just overly sensitive. We're not Chinese, we're Asian. We might have originated from China, but we're Americans, and and the way the president relates that, at least this time about TikTok, he's not referring to like as Asians. He's just saying China is data mining us, and I don't want them to anymore. So.
Which is good.
Yeah.
So, anyways, being that we are living in a very sensitive climate, I just want everyone to understand that, like, when it comes to sensitivity to certain things that are being said or done around you, you got to take it with a grain of salt, right? Because without sensitivity, a lot of things would not get changed. So, for instance, like the women's rights, civil rights movement, it's due to people being sensitive about certain things that's happening to them. So yeah, obviously, take it with a grain of salt, and be objective before you take things as like either racist or not. So
I would say we ought to take things case by case.
Yeah.
Especially in this time, right? This climate we're in, we ought to take things case by case. Like we was talking about earlier, right? He in this past he's said racist things, but does that make him a racist?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So.
And everybody has their own experiences, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think there are things that trigger us more than other things, and we need to be aware of. And there are things that we may overlook, that can be a little sensitive, that has traumatized some people. Right. When I say traumatized, extremely traumatized, not the everyday, oh, I got poked and I got traumatized, but the things that, the extreme bullying, or, the beatdowns, or the things that has happened. Those are things that, we shouldn't overlook, for those that do have those experiences and whatnot. And so, I do think we need to look at it as a case-by-case scenario. So
cool. I agree.
Hey, if you enjoyed this episode of The Bamboo Ceiling, we'd love for you to subscribe, rate, and give us a review on iTunes. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram at #TheBambooCeiling. Until next time, use your voice.